So Sony launched its massive new 2021 flagship smartphone, the Xperia One Mark III, on April the 14th. And now, finally, 2.5 months later, this tall bugger is actually here. Or should I say the review samples are here, because this mighty mobile isn't actually hitting UK stores until August the 19th for the Sphincter Shred and SIM-free price of 1,200 quid. But for that cash, you do at least get a shagload of really clever tech, including the world's first 4K OLED 120Hz display. You've got the Snapdragon 888, packed in there, you've got an upgraded bit of camera tech. But hey, Chris, why don't you shut the f up already? Get that Xperia One Mark III on out of the box. Going to take you on a full-on tour of the hardware and the software, check out the camera features, the gaming chops, all ahead of my in-depth review. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so in the box you get one Xperia One Mark III. And Sony hasn't done a Samsung or an Apple, you do actually get an adapter bundled in the box. And your bog standard basic Type-C to Type-C USB cable, but that's your whack. No condom cases or any extra bonus bits. So that was a very easy unboxing, so now let's actually check out the smartphone itself. Now, if you're a bit of a Sony fan and you've already had a fondle of one of Sony's previous Xperia One handsets, well, you'll probably get some serious deja vu upon picking up the Mark III, because the design hasn't really changed up much at all. This is once again a smooth, shiny 6.5-inch phallus, standing tall and slender, thanks to Sony's excellent 21:9 design. The Xperia One Mark III's long, tall, slender design makes it quite comfortable to clutch for sure, even though it's not quite as pleasantly curved as a lot of flagship rivals like the Galaxy S21. Slightly rounded corners at least, so they don't press into your palm. The screen is protected by fresh Corning Gorilla Glass Victus, which should hopefully make it scratch as well as drop resistant. You then got some metal edging, and the back is Gorilla Glass 6. Thankfully with a lovely frosted finish, so it seems to be reasonably resistant to greasy prints and scuffs. It's certainly very strokeably smooth in a non-pervy way. And as well as all of that Gorilla Glass plating, you've also got full IP68 water and dust resistance as usual here on the Xperia One Mark III, so this flagship is basically tougher than a concrete Bruce Lee. Here in Blighty, unfortunately, you've only got a choice of two different colours. You've got this here frosted black model, otherwise frosted purple. Elsewhere in the globe, you can pick up the Xperia One Mark III in grey, but to be fair, that purple model looks the shiz. Hopefully that's not going to end up being a carrier exclusive or anything, and hopefully Sony will release further colour options later in 2021. I just want a bit of forest green or burgundy red. Come on Sony, sort it out. As with some of the previous Xperia smartphones, things are rather busy down this right end of the phone. You got your volume rocker, your power button / fingerprint sensor. This, I'm assuming, is the Google Assistant button, and then you've got a dedicated shutter button too. Meanwhile, over on the other side, it's nice and simple and plain. All you've got is that pull-out SIM tray, and this allows you to chuck in a couple of SIMs at the same time. Otherwise, that second tray can be used to house a microSD memory card. And then the great news is, of course, as with last generation, Sony has kept the headphone jack in place as well. Alright, so that's the design. Now let's get this mofo all powered up. Alright, Sony Xperia One Mark III all set up, good to go, let's check it out. All of the usual Android features like the apps tray are present and correct. You can drag down that notifications bar from anywhere, thank God, because it's quite a big bugger, so it'll be a bit of a stretch to reach all the way up to the top. Already getting lots of notifications ticking through. So no real surprises at all as far as the software goes. You've got the latest, freshest Android 11 on there, but of course you've got the Sony Xperia UI slapped on top, which just changes up the look and the vibe somewhat. So all the usual Sony fare is present and correct, including good old side sense, which is a movable, customizable bar. Give that a little double tap, and it brings up this dinky little menu. Quite handy because it's a quick way of accessing that one-handed mode. And this is especially useful when you're using any apps where you might have to reach up towards that top end of the screen. Make sure you don't have to like dislocate your thumb getting there. And using side sense, you can also quickly open up the split screen mode as well, which is very handy. So for instance, I quite often have YouTube up at the top so I can watch a video, and then a bit of Chrome or Twitter or something on the bottom so I can browse while I'm watching. So that 21:9 display is just perfectly suited to a bit of split screen. Absolutely perfect stuff. And by the way, I just like to point out, I don't usually watch my own videos. Ugh, nope. You do get the option of pre-installing a whole bunch of other apps, which I just said and blanket no thank you very much, but unfortunately you are forced to have a bit of Facebook on here, which you can't get rid of, at least not easily. Same goes for LinkedIn and a couple others as well. It's very, very annoying. But something that I do quite like is the PS app for any PlayStation owners out there. It's nothing particularly revolutionary, but it gives you fast access to all of your stats, any trophies that you've earned recently. You can check out exactly what you've been up to if you've somehow forgotten. Too much booze, I guess. You can spunk some more money on games on the PlayStation Store and then actually get them downloaded into your PlayStation while you're away, so it's all ready for when you get back. But even better, one of my favorites is the PS Remote Play. The first step is hooking up to your DualShock 4 controller, and I highly recommend buying this grip accessory from Sony as well. Just follow the on-screen instructions, only takes a few seconds. And the Xperia 1 Mark III will then search for your PlayStation over your Wi-Fi network. And then ba-boom, we are in, so you can control your PS4 or your PS5 remotely, so you can, for instance, get a bit of Mass Effect Legendary Edition on the go when you're lying in bed, on the bogs, eating your dinner, doing whatever. So basically, you don't have to pay any attention to your family or whatsoever. It's just glorious gaming wherever, whenever, providing your network's up to it, that is. If you don't have a PlayStation, you're more into your mobile gaming, there's lots of other gaming features available via Game Enhancer as well, but more on that in a bit. No worries for the storage either. They've got 256 gigs available here on the Xperia 1 Mark III. I believe it might come in a 512 gig model as well, but you do have that micro SD to expand anyway, so buckets of storage. And as usual, sadly, there's subtle face unlock support here on the Xperia 1 Mark III, though in these COVID-y, masky days, that's less of an issue. Fingerprint sensor seems reasonably responsive, not the swiftest around that I've tested out, but so far seems fairly dependable at least. Now, I doubt it even needs saying, but one of the highlights of the Xperia 1 Mark III is that 6.5-inch 4K OLED display with that usual 21:9 finish. Absolutely perfect for movies, not so great for classic telly shows, but yeah, that's a kind of a compromise you're gonna have to make. You've got gorgeous contrast as well, because there's full HDR support for streaming services like Netflix. You've got Sony's usual bonus display features packed on here as well, including that creator mode, which provides a faithful reproduction of the creator's intended vision. Definitely one that cinephiles might be interested in, but I'm quite happy just to leave it on standard. You do have an auto creator mode option as well, which can automatically activate it whenever you go into one of the supported apps. You've got the X1 Engine software smarts on there as well, which can just enhance colors and also make things a little bit crisper if you're watching some low-res video. And certainly colors do look very nice when you're watching something with a bit of visual flair, so the anime and animated movies really look nice and dazzling. Those really poppy colors leap off the screen at you. And Sony's factory calibration also means you get some nice, crisp, clean whites. And also great is the fact you can go full screen and you've got no notch or selfie orifice intruding on the action. Absolutely perfect when watching a movie or doing a bit of gaming. And as I mentioned before, Sony's making a big deal of the fact this is the world's first 4K OLED display with 120Hz refresh support. That's mostly because the Xperia 1 Mark III has one of the only 4K displays on a smartphone, but hey ho. That 120Hz refresh though, nice and silky smooth. It's not actually active by default, so you'll have to turn that on in the settings to enjoy it. Yeah, that option was sadly missing from the Xperia 1 Mark II, so it's great to see it here, especially as most rivals do offer a 90 or 120Hz option. The only thing is that it's not a dynamic refresh rate, so you will have to manually tweak it between 60 and 120, depending on whether you want that fast refresh or whether you want to preserve your battery life. Now, another feature I'm very keen to test out here on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III is the stereo speaker setup, which can apparently now pump out 40% louder and richer bass compared with last year's flagship. Not only that, but those speakers apparently support 360 reality audio and can even upscale standard stereo audio into a sort of surround sound experience. You'll find all this shenanigans in the sound settings. Go to audio settings and then you've got this 360 spatial sound option in there. You've got the usual Sony audio smarts in there as well, including the digital sound enhancement engine, good if you listen to some compressed old tracks, and you've got a bit of Dolby Atmos support in there as well. Now, I did try out a variety of content to see if you really did get that sort of surround sound experience. Gotta say, couldn't really hear it myself. Good stereo speaker output, really punchy and loud on that top volume. The clarity can be a little bit distorted in movies like Spider-Man Far From Home when things get a bit punchy, a bit smashy. But yeah, if you want a proper surround sound experience, I'd just stick with some supported headphones. And of course, as usual with the Sony smartphone, you've got full high-res audio support via that headphone jack here on the Xperia 1 Mark III. And you got the usual LDAC shenanigans if you dive into the Bluetooth settings as well. So you'll be able to enjoy a nice, crisp, clean, full-bodied bit of audio no matter what kind of music you're into. Now, performance, no worries as well. The Xperia 1 Mark III unsurprisingly packs that Snapdragon 888 chipset backed by a generous 12 gigs of RAM. So of course the results in the likes of Geekbench are top-notch. And if you are a mobile gamer, well, you've got that game enhancer tool as well, which can be used to add all kinds of bonus features and just really help you up your game, give you the competitive edge over all those bloody skull kids online. Now, when you're playing a game such as good old Genshin Impact, you can drag down that game enhancer menu onto the screen, like so, just a quick swipe from the top left. You can also have it as a floating icon, but that seems a bit weird. And this sets up loads of bonus features, including the good old focus settings, which I very much like, because this can hide your notifications and any calls that are incoming, help to keep you in the game. You can also disable the camera keys, the side sense, all the stuff you might accidentally jab in a moment of frantic passion. The game mode is essentially your performance mode. You'd be fine leaving this unbalanced for the majority of Android titles, but I'm going to be playing Genshin Impact at top detail settings with 60 FPS, so performance preferred for me. And this is also where you'll find the excellent HS power control feature as well. Now, if you find that your Xperia 1 Mark III is about to run out of juice, no worries, just tap that on, plug it in, and you'll find that the phone stays juiced up, but the battery doesn't charge simultaneously, so that means the phone doesn't overheat to a troublesome degree. And Sony has actually enhanced the game enhancer for the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III as well. So for instance, if you dive into display and sound and then go to image quality settings, you'll see you've got a gamma level raiser. You'll find that in those sort of darker games, especially multiplayer online titles, you'll be able to easily see anyone sneaking around in the shadows if you bump that right up. You can set up different presets for all of your games or different gaming modes. You can even play around with the likes of the white balance as well. And you can see the effect that it has right there on the display in real time. There's also now an additional audio equalizer that you can play around with, so you can actually bump up the bass levels, the trebles, whatever you want. This will be particularly handy if you want to detect, for instance, enemy footsteps in the background, so you can hear somebody sneaking up on you. And that's not it for the audio settings. You've also got the optimized mic feature as well, which is if you're using a headset that's actually connected via that 3.5mm headphone jack, it can help to just primarily focus on your voice and cut down any background chatter. And Sony has also improved the screen recording feature as well. So for instance, now you've got the RT record option, which basically constantly buffers 30 seconds of footage in the background. If you suddenly pull off some amazing kill and you realize you weren't actually recording it, just press record and it'll actually start the recording from 30 seconds prior to you hitting that button. If you want to insert your reactions into the video, you can get the front camera and the microphone active as well. And if you stick to the basic 720p HD recording quality, then you can boost the frame rate to 120 FPS. But if you want to get it up to that full HD resolution, then you'll have to stick to 60 FPS. So to really test the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III's gaming chops, I started it off with a good bit of Genshin Impact, as I say, on those max detail settings at 60 frames per second. And the gaming experience was, for the most part, gloriously smooth. A couple of little tiny judders here and there. I did notice that the phone started to heat up quite a lot on the back end around after sort of 20 to 25 minutes. And that was when it started to get a little bit of throttle and the occasional tiny little judder, but otherwise stayed perfectly playable. And I did notice as well that once the phone does start to heat up, a couple of the features in that game enhancer menu are disabled, like the stamina mode, so you can't rely on those all the time. Now, one little issue that I did notice when playing Genshin Impact on the Xperia 1 Mark III was that the screen sensitivity was ever so slightly off. Absolutely fine for running around, changing the camera angle, all that kind of stuff. I just noticed that when you were trying to tap on a very small on-screen icon, such as switching characters in Genshin Impact, sometimes it would take a couple of taps for it to actually register. Even though the button would, flash or whatever, it wouldn't actually do what you wanted it to do. And that's a problem that I've not seen on any other smartphones with Genshin Impact, so I'm going to have a bit of a play around, see if I can work out exactly what's going on there. But otherwise, really enjoyed that full view experience. Nice, crisp, gorgeous graphics. Everything just looks beautiful. As for the battery, where you get 4,500 milliamp hours stuffed inside the Xperia 1 Mark III, so bigger than the previous flagship, hopefully will last you all day. No worries. I've been on this thing pretty much non-stop for the last sort of couple of hours, playing a good bit of Genshin, of course, lots of streaming and stuff, and as you can see, it has ticked down to 62%, but I'd imagine, you probably get around sort of 5 to 6 hours of screen on time with a full charge. I will be testing that out for my full review, and when you do run out of juice, you've got 30 watt wired charging, otherwise also wireless charging. And last up for this unboxing and tour, let's check out that camera tech. And once again, Sony Mobile has teamed up with Zeiss to produce the lenses here, plus using its own alpha camera division for some of the features and the fine tuning. Now, something that Sony fans will immediately notice when they are checking out the camera tech here on the Xperia 1 Mark III is you no longer get the standard camera app, it's the Photo Pro mode all the way. And that's because when you load up the Photo Pro mode, you are immediately thrust into the basic mode. This is a new feature, so basically it acts very similar to the sort of the standard camera app, so you can basically use it to point and shoot if that's what you want. You've got fast access to all the sort of the major features that you might want to use, such as being able to swap between the ultra wide angle lens, the primary lens, and that new dual telephoto lens. You've got the usual AI smarts, which tells you exactly what sort of mode you should be in and can help to tweak the photo automatically on your behalf. You've got the usual features as well, including the bokeh mode to add a sort of a nice blurry background to help your subject stand out. You can play around with basic settings like the brightness levels and the white balance. You can stick on the burst mode. You've got a good bit of timer action and everything on there as well. But if you really want to get the most out of the Xperia 1 Mark III's camera, what you want to do is tap that basic and then try out some of the other modes. You've got full on auto mode, which does still allow you full access to all of the major settings, the shutters, the autofocus. So if you're just starting to dip your toe in the camera settings, this can allow you to change up a couple of bits and sort of see what the results are without having to worry about toggling all of the different features. You've also got the program auto mode, you've got a shutter speed priority mode, you've got a manual exposure mode, and then you've got your memory recall, where basically you can get some very precise settings on the go and then save those for later use. The program auto mode is what a lot of people who are used to DSLRs and other cameras will probably spend their time in. There you can play around with pretty much everything on the go. You've got continuous autofocus, manual focus, single shot autofocus. You can play around with the ISO level, take it all the way up to 3200. Got a variety of color modes to play with, all handily labeled, so you know exactly what you're dealing with: a cloudy one, daylight, fluorescent, all the usual. And as with the full auto mode, you can quickly and easily swap between those 3 different lenses and the 2 different focal lengths for that telephoto lens. You can bring up the old level and the histogram if you want as well, otherwise just hide those from view. And if you dive on into the menu as well, lots of different bonus bits that you can play around with in here. And then when you're finally ready to take your shot, you can just press that shutter button. As you can see there, if you hold it down just a little bit, don't press it all the way, you've got your bit of auto eye detection as well to help you focus. This works for animals as well as humans, so good news if you've got pets or wee sprogs living with you. But if you don't want that on, you can just tap here and knock that feature off, and then just be back to your standard focus. And if you're into your selfies, well, it is a basic 8 megapixel selfie cam. You'll have to go into the basic mode in order to activate that. And the Sony selfie cams, let's face it, they're generally an afterthought. You generally don't get particularly stunning results from them. And to be fair, it seems alright. I mean, that's about as good as a selfie as I usually take. So that right there in a nutshell is the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III smartphone, which I will be slapping my SIM inside of and using as my full-time smartphone for an in-depth review, which hopefully should be landing in just over a week. I'll be fully testing out the camera chops on this thing. I'll be playing lots more games like Call of Duty Mobile and no doubt have my arse handed to me by annoying 11-year-olds. Although who knows, with the bonus game enhancer modes, I might actually stand a chance. But it'd be great to hear your thoughts on the Xperia 1 Mark III down in the comments below. As I say, coming August the 19th for 1,200 quid, so start saving probably about 3 or 4 years ago actually. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a fantastic weekend. Cheers everyone, love you.